By the time we returned back to Edo, the sun had set, dipping into the orange pool of the western horizon. Kazuma led us to a secluded inn, adorned with modest decorations and lighting, as our lodgings for the evening when, lo and behold... This is Loverly. Amagiri was there waiting for us. Hi again.
I'm glad to see you've made it back safely. So, what's she doing there behind you? Are you acting coy? Do I have to spell it out for you, or are you going to quit being an idiot? Enough horseplay. Tell me, what have you uncovered? Well, that depends on how much time you've got. There's quite a bit to report.
Amagiri answered coolly, glancing over at me after he spoke. Was he implying that I needed to step out? Just as I prepared my things to leave the room.
This girl. She has inherited Yukimura blood. She has the right to listen to our conversation.
Well, damn.
It is up to her, that is, if she has the stomach for it.
In typical fashion, Kazuma was speaking about me in a dismissive manner, but I took it to mean that he had been respectfully acknowledging my agency in the decision to stay. Yeah, he's not very good at wording himself in a respectful manner, but he actually is. He's just, he needs to work on his conversational skills. Yeah. No matter what it was that Amagiri had to say, if it had anything to do with fathering Kaoru, then I had an obligation to stay. I am ready for whatever it is you have to say. Please allow me to remain here. Amagiri nodded deeply, taking a deep breath as he began his report.
In regards to Kaoru Nagamo, he appears to be in Kofu, residing with warriors from the Tosa domain. To make matters worse, he has an entourage of Kodo's enhanced furies with him as well.
Kofu. If I remembered correctly, that's where the Shinsengumi had been headed. If Kaoru was leading a battalion of furies along with members of the Imperial Army to wherever the Shinsengumi was marching towards, then it means...
It looks like the Shinsengumi is going to have their hands tied with these furies in Kofu, aren't they? Yes, exactly.
I couldn't get my body to stop shaking with worry. Would everyone be safe? During the Battle of Tobafushimi, the Shinsengumi suffered numerous casualties, and on top of that, Okita, to my knowledge, had still been bedridden, and was in no suitable condition to wield his sword on the battlefield, according to Dr. Matsumoto. My poor sick boy.
Negotiations between the Imperial Army and the Shogunate are ongoing at Edo Castle. If their talks start getting a little messy, then Edo will bathe in an ocean of fire. Ergo, the perfect opportunity for Kodo and Kaoru to unleash their sick beasts into the sea of blood. Yes. I assume they will organize their furies and march them back to Edo as soon as possible. But then again, there aren't too many areas in which they could hide their large devilish army.
It's funny to hear them call it a devilish army when they're literally demons.
The Nagamo clan is affiliated with the Tosa domain, are they not? How oddly coincidental. For now, keep a watchful eye on their movements.
As I listened to their conversation, an urgent feeling of panic raged inside of me, and I realized that I was suddenly drenched in cold sweat. Edo could be bathing in an ocean of fire. If Kazuma's prediction comes true, then Edo's innocent people will be helpless against the vicious tide of furies, eager for the taste of blood. Everything was coming together, and it horrified me to imagine sacrificing an entire city for the purpose of feeding this army's insatiable hunger. It was a violation of the world's sacred order, and we were running out of time.
Now that we're on the subject, I am curious about what the Choshu were planning as well. I plan on warning the Satsuma officials about this matter, of course, but If Kodo and Kaoru make pawns out of the Choshu, then it will all be for naught. We will have Shiranui gain an audience with them. I shall alert him at once. However, I have seen little of him since we last met at Yasei village. Since then, he has been a ghost even on the battlefield. Perhaps he has grown tired of playing a part in this sick game.
Shiranui! Amagiri left us with that, bowing lightly as he exited the room. Kazuma stood still for a moment before turning to me.
I am stepping out. Get some rest.
Oh, okay. Please be careful.
Unless you are confronted with an emergency, you are forbidden from leaving this building. Otherwise, we might have a repeat incident of earlier today.
Okay, I understand. I can't believe we're at the point in our relationship where she's telling him to be careful. Amazing. Kazuma lingered for a moment longer, gazing into my eyes to assure himself, then he flew out the door. Hopefully we'll be okay. I went to my room and prepared my bedding. As soon as my head hit my pillow, I fell fast asleep. Good girl. In my deep, dreary slumber, a dream came to me. Okay, is this one of those in-between waking and dreaming moments? Or is it an actual dream? Memory dream? Memory dream! The setting was my childhood home, and my arm was being pulled by someone. Through a muted white haze, I watched smoke billowing into the sky, tall flames surrounding us at every turn as we tried to flee hastily. Ah, the ocean of fire brought the memory.
Chizuru! Chizuru! This way!
A familiar figure, not too far from my own age, was leading me somewhere by the hand. The burning village evoked a strange feeling of deja vu. Beside us was a small hill where I'd often picked flowers and the pen that housed our livestock. Those places, like the memories attached to them, were becoming reduced to ash and cinder, and from the distance I heard shrieks of terror. What was going on? Who could possibly do such a thing? Were father and mother safe? As my mind swirled with anxiety.
Damn it! The fire spread here too!
Flames blocked our path, encroaching towards us slowly. Just then,
Kaoru! Chizuru! This way!
a voice frantically called out to us. Although his identity was unclear, I understood him to be one of my relatives.
Quickly! Grab a hold of me! The flames will catch up to us!
I did as he instructed, flinging my arm at him before the fire's reach where we had been standing. Huh. So is Dad one of our relatives, but not our actual father? That's interesting. Rushing into his arms, the man led us into the forest at the outskirts of the village, where our breathing became easier away from the thick, smoky haze.
We've run far enough. I don't think the fire can reach us here. We should be safe.
Uncle. Okay. Things are getting interesting.
Uncle, why did this happen? Where is our father? And mother, too?
Suddenly, I realized who this boy was. He shouldn't look like that. This was a while ago. It was my twin brother, Kaoru.
That fire was becoming too dangerous for us to stay behind. We had no choice but to leave them.
And this man was?
Unforgivable. The humans have cruelly summoned calamity and misfortune to our people. Are they punishing us for refusing to overthrow the shogunate? They light our families, our homes on fire for wanting peace? We lived in solitude.
On that night, it wasn't our father, but a distant relative who saved us from being burned alive. He later assumed the role of my father and raised me, Kodo Yukimura. Very, very neat. Oh, I'm loving all this stuff. We're getting so much more backstory. Also, after the last episode, this just reminded me. Dad transforming in front of Chizuru. I'm wondering if Kazuma will teach Chizuru how to activate her demon look. We've only seen her turn into a demon once, I think, and that's when she drank the water of life on Soji's root. But I'd like to see her change of her own volition. Because I assume she can do that. Sen can do it. So, yeah. I'm hoping. I awoke with extreme fright, tears streaming down my face hysterically. For whatever reason, my mind needlessly exhumed a memory that was buried and suppressed years ago. Ocean of Fire, girl. Now it was all coming back to me. That fateful night, humans mysteriously appeared and set fire to our village and sadistically murdered dozens of my people, including my beloved parents. Or so Kaoru later told me. In a selfish grab for power, they wiped our village from existence and attempted to absorb our lands. Father made one thing abundantly clear. Continuing to allow humans to rule barbarically and further their destructive tendencies, it would only produce more orphans like Kaoru and myself. Although I was opposed to the idea of using Furies, of all things, as a force to counteract mankind's penchant for destruction, at the same time, there was a method to their madness, and I couldn't bear to think about how they coped with the memory of our people's genocide. A knock at my door snapped me out of my stupor.
Pardon me for intruding. Are you awake in there?
From the other side of the door, I heard the inn's attendant calling out to me. Oh, yes. What is it?
I have a guest asking for you. May I send him in?
A guest? Who could it be? One moment, please. I'm a little indisposed. Just let me arrange my bedding. A guest? After I tidied up my room, the attendant slid open the door and ushered in my surprise visitor. Ah, okay, because I'm like, who knows I'm here? Except for the demons.
Oh, what's this? Is it just you here?
Shiranui! What are you doing here?
Well, Amagiri summoned me, so I came at once, but... looks like I'm a little late.
It would appear so. Judging from our previous conversation, Amagiri was tirelessly hopping between locations to gather intelligence for Kazuma. However, I believe Kazuma will be returning momentarily.
That's so. I guess it wouldn't hurt for me to stick around and kill some time, then.
Shiranui studied my room meticulously, and, eyeing a spot to sit, plopped on the floor quietly. Semi-quietly. It's gonna clean my gun. Oh, Shiranui. I watched nervously as he pulled his pistol from its holster and inspected it carefully for any smudges.
What is it?
Is it true that Edo might be the center of the next battle soon? I'm worried about something Kazuma said, that it might be engulfed in flames soon. As I expressed my concern, Shiranui suddenly froze, holding his pistol still in his hand.
Well, I'd be lying if I told you there wasn't a high chance of that happening.
No. But aren't all of the remaining shogunate leaders and soldiers still stationed in Edo? How can they just let that happen? Do you truly believe that the people of Edo will simply roll over to the Imperial Army like that? The vivid memory of my village consumed by wildfire struck me once more. If Edo were similarly engulfed in flames, then hundreds of people would assuredly burn to their deaths. This time there wouldn't be only 2 orphans. Hundreds, no thousands of children would be displaced, if not worse. I was sure of it.
Calm down. As we speak, the Satsuma and Shogunate leaders are all having a cup of tea and discussing this whole thing at Edo Castle. Luckily, we were able to weasel the Shinsengumi as far away from Edo as possible, too.
Huh? I didn't grasp the significance behind what Shiranui had said at first, and I prompted him to clarify. What do you mean by weaseling the Shinsengumi as far away from Edo as possible?
Oh, did they not tell you? The shogunate has no intention of letting Edo fall under siege or be lit ablaze. Instead, those dumbasses fell right into our laps, and we're going to teach them a lesson as far away from here as we can drag them. The Imperial Nationalist Party has got a score to settle with the Shinsengumi.
Shiranui revealed that the shogunate hadn't sent the Shinsengumi on a mission to tackle Imperial army forces in Kofu after all. Rather, the shogunate offered them up as collateral, far away from the negotiating table with the Satsuma and Choshu while they discussed terms of surrender. Instead of battling Imperial forces, a more sinister threat awaited them in Kofu. The Furies. As I put the pieces together, I nearly fainted.
Oh, I thought I heard a familiar voice in here. Nice to see you, Shiranui.
Don't look so surprised. You're the reason I'm here. Let's cut to the chase. I'm a busy man, you know.
There are some questions I need answering. It won't take much of your time.
I'm just gonna pass out over here, okay guys? Thanks. Kazuma recounted our past weeks to Shiranui. He mentioned encountering my father in Edo, and described in great detail Father's plot to gather blood in order to feed his army of Furies. The most crucial detail, however, was Father's proposition to use this army of Furies to manipulate the Choshu into doing his bidding.
I see. Got it.
Well, what say you? Do you expect the Choshu to fall prey to his little schemes?
As much as I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Omura is currently the commander of Choshu's army. He's crazy. Crazier than Takasugi ever was.
A former doctor who becomes instrumental in leading the Choshu domain to victory against the shogunate. Interesting. What do you mean by crazy?
The guy's a maniac when it comes to strategy. He's undefeated in battle, and everything he knows he's learned from Western tactics. History has seen men of his kind in the past, and you can expect to see more in the future. They are architects, shaping the world with their destruction.
Wait, so was he the one in charge of the army during the second Choshu expedition? It refers to the two separate attempts made by the shogunate to subjugate the Choshu domain for its insolence. Sadly, both campaigns ended in failure.
You got it. It was Omura and Takasugi, whom I was guarding at the time.
During the second Choshu expedition, the shogunate commanded an army of over 150,000 soldiers at their command, but Choshu leaders were craftier than the shogunate expected, using the terrain to their advantage and forcing the shogunate soldiers to retreat. If the one responsible for that decisive victory were now at the helm of Choshu's entire army, then would the shogunate soldiers, much less the Shinsengumi, have any chance of survival?
If I know Omura, then I don't see him rejecting the offer to use Furies if it guarantees the Imperial Army's victory. Think about it. The Satsuma have a lot to gain from embarrassing the shogunate in battle too.
At one point, the Satsuma and Choshu domains were locked in a fierce rivalry of their own. Their alliance may have been predicated by their shared interest in dismantling the Takagawa clan, but sooner or later, there could only be room for one.
What a circus.
The only thing Kazuma hated more than mankind was its greed, and he made no secret of his disdain. Shiranui, please. You must convince the Choshu not to use the Furies. Neither humans nor demons have the means of handling them if they start outnumbering us. Even if they win the war, it's only a matter of time until they're next on the chopping block.
I know. To be honest, the very notion of the Choshu requiring outside intervention of any kind offends me. Leave the rest to me.
Can we depend on you, Shiranui?
Learn to trust your comrades, you bastard. That's it then? That's all you have to say? Guess I'll be on my way now.
Shiranui delicately placed his pistol back into its holster, smirking wryly as he stood up from his sitting position. Without another word, he sauntered out of the room. Bye, Shiranui, love you. Good luck with your mission. A few days later, we received word that the tense negotiations between leaders of the Satsuma, Choshu, and the shogunate had concluded. Hoping to avoid another devastating loss, the shogunate surrendered control of Edo Castle over to the Satsuma Choshu. To my relief, Edo and its citizens were safe from a catastrophic battle, unlike Kyoto, which had been ravaged by the Battle of Toba-Fushimi. Unfortunately, word of the surrender came late after the Shinsengumi had already departed Edo for Kofu. I later learned that neither Nagakura nor Harada were counted amongst the Shinsengumi's ranks. As for Okita, he too was absent from the convoy, as his condition worsened to the point that merely holding his sword was enough to exhaust him. So much about Okita in this route. My curiosity was driving me up the wall, and I wanted to learn more about their status, but Dr. Matsumoto was occupied with the tumultuous political climate, and letters were becoming fewer and farther between. Around the time of our correspondence, rumors that Kondo had surrendered to the Imperial Army reverberated all around Edo. May 1868. It was a brisk springtime evening. Alright.
Listen carefully. Kodo has emerged out of hiding in the Tosa Domain's residence and is mobilizing.
He is?
They are heading to Ueno, I bet. Logic would dictate, yes. It is the only locale near Edo with a dense enough population to feed his massive army. Their foolish plan to thrust Edo into chaos hadn't panned out as expected. Surely they are reaching the point of desperation.
Ueno was a mountainous region slightly north of Edo. The Shogi Company was assembled by one of the former Bakushin who recognized Ueno's potential as a strategic location against the Imperial Army. It was heavily populated with civilians and soldiers alike, making it the ideal location to feed thousands of Furies at once.
Since this directly concerns you as a Yukimura, do you intend on accompanying us?
Kazuma's eyes flickered impertinently, almost as if he were testing me. My mind was already set, however. I am going. Please allow me to join you. Kazuma squinted in response, staring blankly at me for a brief moment before relenting.
Very well.
His curt response was all I needed. Here we go again. When Kazuma and I last spoke about matters concerning my father, he was dead set on prohibiting me from getting involved, but because the shogunate had surrendered their control of Edo Castle, I wasn't as worried about the looming fear of all-out war breaking out. If Furies could no longer be used as leverage in shifting the tide of an approaching civil war, then perhaps my father would see the error in his ways once he realizes how little the Imperial Army values his experiments. Maybe? I wrestled with these thoughts as Kazuma continued.
I assume he is marching half of his Furies to Ueno while we speak. Shiranui should already be in Ueno with a group of Choshu soldiers. Do you expect Shiranui to fall victim to that pathetic army of fakes? We will reconvene with him as soon as our business with Kodo is concluded.
Okay, understood. Edo was blessed with a hushed calm as its residents slept peacefully in the dead of night. We snuck carefully through the city, arriving at the Tosa Domain's building of residence. It was eerily silent around the building's perimeter, almost as if the building was long since abandoned. I felt inexplicably anxious when wind chimes hanging beside the building's entrance hauntingly rang.
I detect no one nearby. Have they already left for Ueno?
Oh! Kazuma, look! Over there! A shadow crawled on the building's wall. There is no way I could have mistaken it. I squinted to make out his face in the darkness. Our presence must have alerted his detection, and he leapt down from the building to greet us. Hi.
It's been a while. I have been waiting patiently for you, little sister.
Kaoru, no!
I've already spoken with the old man. He informed me that he had generously offered you the chance to join us, but he got in the way of that or something.
Sister brother's always jealous of my booze.
Don't you think it's rude of you to interrupt an emotional reunion between a father and his daughter?
Kazuma's face. Kaoru, I wouldn't be so bold if that was the face looking back at me. Yee. Kazuma kept his guard raised, glaring at Kaoru without humoring his sarcasm.
So, why are all of you here? If you brought these two as your bodyguards, it can't mean anything good.
I wasn't sure if either Kaoru or Father were interested in hearing me out, but if I hadn't taken the chance to speak with them first, Kazuma would have murdered them without question. Moreover, no matter what happens, I had a responsibility to talk some sense into them. Kazuma, please give me one more chance to convince them. Without moving his head, Kazuma shifted his line of sight at me begrudgingly, taking his time to decide.
As you wish.
Thank you. I felt a huge pang of relief, and after thanking Kazuma, I turned to face Kaoru. What he really meant was, I love you. That's a Princess Bride reference for anyone who doesn't get it. I want you and Father to hear me out before this goes any further. Kaoru gazed at me coldly, pursing his lips as he thought about how to proceed.
I see. I think I have an idea of what you're going to say. Why don't all of you come inside? Kodo's been expecting you.
Oh boy, this is bad. This is bad news bears.
Chizuru! At last you've come.
Father. Although I made myself aware of all of the horrible things my father had done over the past few years, every time that he greeted me with his jovial smile, it shattered me to 1,000 pieces. Even if we weren't related by blood, he dedicated his life to raising me like a daughter. As the guilt trickled in, I had to snap myself out of it, straightening my back as I spoke to them. I dreamt something. It wasn't much, but it was a memory from my childhood. I witnessed a vision of our village burning, and I recalled how the humans destroyed our way of life. Both of you were there to rescue me, and together we escaped the fire by fleeing desperately into the forest.
I can only begin to imagine how painful it must have been, my child, to remember such atrocities.
I shook my head at him. It's not about me. I know the two of you have been mulling this trauma over for far longer than I have. After all that's happened, I can't blame either of you for holding on to your grudge against humanity for as long as you have.
Then...
Kaoru attempted to interject, and I could have sworn I watched his expression begin to soften. Keeping all of this in mind, however, I implore the two of you not to unleash your Fury Army. As soon as I mentioned the last part, both Kaoru and Father froze in shock. I don't think I've ever seen that look on Kaoru's face before. Luckily, we were able to avoid the terrors of war in Edo. Why do either of you seek to inflict pain on others? Haven't they suffered enough? I'm sure neither of you want to impose the same nightmarish fate that we've had to endure, do you?
Chizuru.
A forlorn expression covered Father's face. Kaoru, on the other hand, was less sympathetic to the point I was trying to make.
Don't break your foot getting off that high horse. Must be nice living a privileged life, isn't it?
Huh?
After our village burned down, do you know how hard I had to struggle living in Tosa with the Nagamo clan? Because I can't bear children, they treated me like I was less than dirt. I was lucky they kept me alive. They broke me again and again until I was nothing. At one point I contemplated ending it all. Thanks to them, I realized humans and demons were no different. Power corrupts all.
Listening to Kaoru made my heart sink. All that time I was living peacefully with Father in Edo. Kaoru was forced to endure a miserable life without love or compassion. It explains so much. While I sympathize with his terrible circumstances, What do you want, brother? Do you want to use the Furies to rebuild the Yukimura clan? Is that what you really want?
Isn't it obvious? It's my duty. I cannot let our parents down by letting our name hang in disgrace. I refuse to let those sons of bitches destroy our legacy without putting up a fight. The Nagamo clan abused me, and the demons in the west turned a blind eye to our suffering and let our people scatter with the wind. How do you expect me to forgive them for spitting on us when we begged for their help? Doesn't that insult what it means to be a demon?
Each word Kaoru spoke broke off another piece of my heart as his festering resentment came to light. Maybe I judged him incorrectly, and the only thing that could soothe his restless soul was if he exacted revenge on every person that ever harmed or wronged him in the past. Perhaps there was no other way. Kazuma stepped in front of me all of a sudden. He hadn't even looked at me as he spoke.
Step back.
Kazuma. Just as I feared, the time had finally come. Kazuma decided he'd had enough, and was moving towards killing Father and Kaoru if they chose not to cooperate. Kazuma,
I told you to step back.
He barked at me sternly, and I did as he commanded. He reached his hand towards the hilt of his katana. In one swift movement, it had been unsheathed. Kazuma held it comfortably in his palm as if it were an extension of his own arm, and like a dragon's scale, it sparkled, illuminating the room.
Yasutsuna's demon slayer, eh? Since that weapon was forged to kill demons, it must mean you're really going for us, aren't you? Of course. Then it looks like I'll have to return the favor.
Kaoru slipped his hand into his pocket, drawing from it a crystalline vial. Oh no, it was... Is he only drinking that now? Is that the water of life? Why would Kaoru be using that? No!
The dishonored bastard of a demon clan has to forfeit his life in order to become a fake, is that it? Here I thought you could stoop no lower. It appears we disagree on what constitutes honor. No matter what happens, I cannot allow you to kill me here!
Brother, no! Taking a split second to decide, I sprinted towards Kaoru to snatch the serum away from him, but...
Don't touch me!
As I got within arm's reach, Kaoru extended his hand backwards and slapped me, crumpling me to the floor. Ow. I was too late. Well, at least he didn't make you drink it this time.
Gah! Ah!
Kaoru gripped his chest as he moaned in anguish. As he let the vial slip from his hand, it shattered once it landed. Just then... Well, here he goes. I witnessed what appeared to be a white flame. Kaoru's eyes suddenly turned gold, and similar to what happened to Father, horns began to protrude from his wide forehead. My twin brother, Kaoru Nagamo, had drunk the water of life and become a fury.
See? Now it's a fair fight, isn't it, Chikage Kazuma? You are lost, boy.
Kazuma muttered coolly under his breath. Woo! There it is. All of a sudden, an aura emanated from Kazuma as his body shapeshifted, revealing his true demon self. Both of them radiated chakra-like spheres of energy, glowing white-hot as they charged at one another. The thunderous clang of their blades echoed deafeningly around the room.
Go!
Is brother really going up against Chikage? Their agility was superhuman, making it difficult to track the paths of their swords as they rapidly traded a flurry of unrelenting attacks.
Ha 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 ha! I see you! You're not quick enough for me! At this rate, I will crush you in minutes!
Sparks flew as their sharp swords cracked into one another, and neither was willing to let up steam. Yeah, I was wondering about you two. I'm like, are you guys just chilling watching this, or are you gonna do anything?
Kodo, you're mine. Let's go.
Amagiri called out to Father, dropping into a low fighting stance, but Father seemed unamused.
There is no need to rush things. In fact, since we are all together, perhaps you would be better off warming up with my beloved children.
Father put 2 fingers to his mouth and whistled. From behind us I heard the ominous creak of doors all sliding open. Within seconds, our worst fears were realized.
Blood. Blood. Blood! Give me blood!
We suddenly found ourselves surrounded by a bevy of red eyes, all eagerly looking to feast upon us.
No!
Whew! Go Amagiri! Amagiri was the first to react, throwing fast kicks and punches at the Furies funneling into the room, but...
Heh heh. Won't work on us. Doesn't hurt.
Not even Amagiri's exceptional martial arts technique could subdue the incoming Furies, and they closed in without flinching.
You bastards!
Eeh. Amagiri had the advantage of battle-worn experience and superior physical strength, but... his attacks did little to stunt their vicious fervor, and soon dozens of Furies had us cornered. Amagiri! Kazuma! Fearing for their safety, I grabbed a hold of my Kodachi in order to join them in the fight. Suddenly, however, I was taken from behind.
Chizuru, let's leave while we can.
Father!
No matter what anyone else claims, you are a descendant of the Yukimura clan. Your parents would have wanted you to join us more than anything.
No! Let me go! I attempted to wrestle myself out of Father's grip, but... he forcibly pinned me with both of his arms, making it nearly impossible for me to break free. Father, what is it you plan on doing with me after you take me away? Don't tell me it's true. Don't tell me you expect me to bear children with Furies!
Demons of Japan and demons of the West. 2 species that had never been acquainted will now come together as one, and from their union shall produce the strongest demons ever to exist. This, Chizuru, is your destiny. I believe this is what you were born to do.
Father's words paralyzed me with fear, and at first, nothing he said was registering. Is this what he had planned for me when he took me in as a daughter? If all went according to his plan, then the casualties wouldn't be limited to our country alone. This affliction could potentially spread around the world, devastating countless innocent lives. I couldn't bear to let my life amount to this, nor could I stand to let myself be attached to such a horrifying crime against humanity. I must end my life! My eyes flicked down to my waist, and I struggled in Father's arms to try grabbing my Kodachi, but... with both my arms still pinned, I had no hope of unsheathing it.
What are you doing? Don't do anything reckless!
Father attempted to pry the Kodachi away from me, but it proved difficult as I jostled myself in his arms.
Kodo, let her go.
Both Father and I became still as we watched Cosma saunter towards us coldly. What happened to Sister Brother?
What? How are you here so soon? Don't tell me Kaoru lost to the likes of you.
Are you deaf, old man? I said let her go.
Father smirked, continuing to ignore his command. Cosma shifted his eyes at me momentarily, looking at me intently as he motioned with his lips. It was almost as if he were attempting to express his desire to kill Father, whether or not I approved. Man, look, he's got bad plans for me. It's fine. Go, man. I give you full permission. I tried so many times to get through to Father. I spilled my heart out, and still he refused to listen. At some point, I had to accept the truth. Our paths had diverged, and it was unlikely that we would ever see eye to eye about the atrocities he threatened to commit. Unfortunately, it left us with no other choice. I looked Cosma in the eye, and without another second to hesitate, I nodded firmly. Judging by his wry smile, it seemed Cosma understood everything.
Death is a messy affair, and this certainly is no exception. Shut your eyes, girl.
I appreciated Cosma's curt sentiment, but... No, I am one of them. I too am a demon of the Yukimura clan. The least I could do is dignify him with the honor of watching his final moments. Dad's like, what? What do you mean my final moments?
You've got a stronger heart than I thought, kid. Just don't blame me if this haunts you forever.
Cosma seemed certain about it, but this was something I knew I couldn't regret. If this was the fate of Kaoru, father, and myself, then so ends the legacy of the Yukimura clan. Our shared heritage meant that they would always be connected to me, and I to them. Our paths were interwoven, and their deaths were on my hands.
Okay, Kodo. Have you made peace with yourself? Luckily for you, I am merciful. I promise this won't hurt. Well, not too much.
Cosma raised his sword arm high above Father's head and stepped within inches of his face.
Kyo!
Panic suddenly set in for Father, realizing there would be no escape from this execution until... Father's eyes glowed menacingly, and he focused his fury powers within himself, causing the ground to rumble underneath our feet. Father broke away from me to charge towards Cosma, but it was no use. Their difference in power was palpable, even if he had scalpels. Cosma effortlessly swung his sword at the speed of light. As soon as I blinked, I watched a deep, wide gash appear across Father's sunken chest. Eventually, a splash of crimson blood cascaded in the air.
Ah!
Father desperately cried in agony, dropping lifelessly to the floor limp as a stone. Cosma flicked his sword downward to swat the blood sticking to its blade, then sheathed it as if to make a conclusive statement. Father! I ran to his corpse, and something peculiar occurred. All of the color left his pale, freezing skin. His flesh began to smolder, similar to the burnt end of an incense, and slowly turned to ash in front of me. Is that the power of the Demon Slayer sword? As he disintegrated before my eyes, what remained of his body floated away with the breeze, leaving behind nothing in its wake. Father! At long last, Father was dead. The man for whom I had spent years searching had, once again, exited my life without a word. Although I had accepted the possibility of his death ages ago, my body felt suddenly light, perhaps feeling his empty weight in my broken heart. Words escaped me entirely. I traced his path, thinking of all the ways things could have fallen apart for him. Reflecting on these hypothetical circumstances just sent me into a defeated slump, and without saying a word, Cosma drew me in closer to his chest. Aw, thank you! Cosma. I couldn't bear to look up at him. Whatever Cosma had to say on the matter was an enigma to me, but for now I took solace in the comfort of his arms. Because I don't think I could have stood by myself if I wanted to. What happened to Kaoru? Did you... What did I want to say? Kill him? The words wouldn't form in my mouth.
I left a severe injury on him, but he escaped. However, since it was a wound inflicted by my demon slayer, it will take some time to heal.
The tone of Cosma's voice gave me the impression that he was trying to put me at ease, but I doubted that Kaoru would completely heal from a wound of that magnitude. However, that he attempted to show me kindness made all the difference in this vulnerable moment. Father truly was a wonderful man. Truly. My heart felt so heavy that I barely noticed the tears sliding down my cheeks. He was a humble, generous man. He cared so much for his patients and always strived to better himself. I was proud to call him my father. For so many years, we lived as just the two of us. It was peaceful, far from anything like this. The bittersweet memory of my childhood came flooding back to me, which only seemed to exacerbate my flowing tears. I wonder what happened that caused him to change so drastically.
If their village hadn't been burned to the ground, then perhaps there would have been some hope of saving the men they used to be. At the end of the day, humans are to blame.
There was a resentful undertone lurking underneath Kazuma's hushed voice. Kazuma was unashamedly proud to be a demon. Eventually, this pride morphed into hatred, a potent discontent for everyone he considered beneath him. For Kazuma, I could only imagine how difficult it must have been to murder one of his own kin. It's fine. I understand. Although humans were responsible for the death of my people, which led to them following this path of bitter revenge, Father and Kaoru chose to let it consume them to the point of no return. However, it was easier to talk about than it was to accept. I'm just so heartbroken. I sobbed so hard that my eyes began to burn. Kazuma, sensing my pain, gripped me tighter. I know what you mean, though. Some humans are unmistakably evil, but others are okay. Tears dripped into my mouth as I spoke shakily. But there are so many of them who commit their lives to pursuits other than power and money. In my experience, the Shinsengumi weren't concerned with selfish goals in order to live fulfilling lives. I wanted nothing more than to learn of their fate. I must find them, wherever they were. Now that I had lost Father, there weren't many other convictions worth seeing to their end. Aww.